Hey everyone, Joe Turner here at Sunset Learning Studios in Redondo Beach. One of the things that I wanted to do with these videos is really start to give some tips, not only for drummers, but also for instructors. Get into that a little bit. So, give some tips as far as what I do with my students that can be helpful for you as well with your students, or if you're just starting out teaching, maybe you just need a little bit of guidance as far as how to effectively teach some students and how to keep students. So one of the biggest things that I've run into, and probably the number one thing I say to all my students is you have to be okay with going slow. We have to be patient with ourselves. So I think generally as drummers we're not real patient. We learn something, we play it correctly once, and then we want to move on. We want to either move on to the next thing, or we want to take that thing all the way up to record tempo and then some. That's usually not how it goes, at least not with the challenging stuff. So we have to be patient with ourselves to some extent. So if you're learning something, this is kind of my general rule. So if you're learning something, or for instructors out there, if you're teaching something, have your students or you play whatever it is they're learning slowly and correctly. Okay, that's the first step. Can they play it slowly and correctly? And from there, have them play it slowly and correctly consecutively. I would say, at least 10 times. That's usually my number. I say if you can play it slowly and correctly 10 times in a row, then you're okay to bump it up. But only then. And sometimes it might take more than that. But, so once you can do that, so say we're nice little visual aid here. We're going to use this. This is your tempo, okay? This is the slowly and correctly, okay? You're gonna play it there 10 times, cool, 10 times. Now from there, we don't jump from here to there. That's not the goal, okay? Say this is record tempo or goal tempo. We don't make that big of a jump, because that 99% of the time doesn't work. So once you can play it 10 times correctly at this tempo, this nice slow controlled pace, then you jump up to here. Do the same thing. Play it there, and so you can play it through consecutively 10 times. Then from there, boom, boom, boom. And eventually all these little jumps that you're making will be quicker and easier, because we're training ourselves to do it correctly. And that's the big thing, is when we play something slowly and correctly, we're actually teaching ourselves how to play that thing the right way. If we try to do it at goal tempo or record tempo, and we can only do it every 1 out of 3 times, and chances are that's probably luck. We're not actually teaching ourselves the correct way. We're just teaching ourselves that every now and again we can get lucky, right? So take the time to really learn it. I know it's not the easiest thing in the world, but I've found with some of the more intense or complicated things that I've worked on in the past, if I take that beginning time to really just slow it down and play it correctly and be patient with myself, I'm able to get it to record tempo or goal tempo a lot easier, because I start here, this is kind of painful, and then from there all these little bumps just get easier and easier, because I've actually trained myself. We've trained our muscles, we've trained our limbs to play things the right way, correctly, rather than we start doing it too fast and we've trained ourselves incorrectly. Now for instructors, here's where we run into a little bit of a problem. It's kind of the same thing, where we get a little impatient. We have to be comfortable letting our students within the lesson spend some time on that. I think we usually tend to rush ahead. We say, okay, well they can't do it yet, but I'll just let them practice it at home, and then we'll move on. If we do that, it's going to be a lot harder to fill up that time, but also we're not there to actually catch what they're having a problem with. If they're running through it and they're having trouble and they're just not getting it, or they're not able to gain any speed, usually after some time through, you can start to pinpoint what's actually tripping them up. Whether it's a technique thing, or they're not computing one set of notes. Usually it's just like a little piece of it. So don't be afraid to actually have them spend a significant amount of time on one thing throughout that lesson, because a lot can happen in that time. You can see a lot of things start to deconstruct a little bit, and you can get to the root of the problem. And that, again, that is challenging, because we want to make it fun, we want to make it exciting, and playing the same drum beat for 5 minutes in a row isn't always the most exciting thing, but that's, that's effective. And then once they get past that, a lot of times then you can start to move quicker through these lessons and through these harder things. But sometimes you have to go through those little growing pains and be patient with yourself within the lesson as an instructor. Be patient and say, okay, we're going to spend 5 minutes on this. We're going to spend 10 minutes on this, because that might be how long it takes. Don't be afraid to actually take that time. Okay, let me know what you think.